ज्योतिर्गमय
Yog Sadhana by Acharya Girish Cha.
Manaiva manushyanam karanam bandhamokshayo bandhai vishaya saktam nirvishayam muktai manah. The Gita says, mind is the cause of bondage and the freedom. When this mind is attached, it brings the bondage, and when the same mind is detached, drops all its clingings, comes the freedom. This is one of the greatest messages in the Gita and conveys the essence of authentic yoga tradition. Authentic yoga tradition, it is 6,000 years old tradition. We have over 3,000 masters, and there are over 1,000 texts. But question arises, why all these texts talk about and what they talk about? All these texts written during the period of 6,000 years, and the yoga that was taught by these great masters, the message is simple: transcend the mind and enter into the real self, or discover the real self. It is yoga that declares that there is a reality behind, above the mind, and one can realize, live, move, and act into that reality, and brings an end to all the sufferings of the life. What is the approach of authentic yoga tradition, and how we can understand through the modern science? We have been living in a scientific age. A journey from matter to consciousness is what we term as a science, and a journey from consciousness to matter is yoga. See the contrast. They do not oppose each other. Yoga is a journey from consciousness to matter, or you can say yoga is a journey from the innermost self to the outermost self. And the science is a journey from the outermost self to the innermost self. Science has made remarkable progress in understanding the material phenomenon, but still progressing. And the science has yet to come to a conclusion what this consciousness is. It is understanding the functioning, the mechanism of the brain, mind, and consciousness. What if we combine the wisdom of the science and yoga together? We get the combined wisdom. Not only we bring an end to all the sufferings in our life, but we also continue to use these gadgets and tools. After all, science also aims at discovery of the truth, and yoga also aims at discovery of the truth. The journey may be different, the approach may be different, but ultimately both science and yoga aims at knowing, understanding the truth, so that life becomes simple, easy, full of health, harmony, and happiness. It brings peace, prosperity, and success. What I mean by the combined wisdom of yoga and the science, that if we understand the material universe with fundamentals of yoga, we can easily enter into the higher consciousness, or we can discover our real self. We can bring an end to all the sufferings in life. We can achieve excellence in life. The very realization, the discovery of the self is not opposed to the science and the scientific progress. After all, they both are integral part of our life. We cannot say that we are the body alone. We are the mind too. We are emotions too. We are the breath too. We are the intellect too. We are the ego. But there is something beyond all. Yoga begins the journey from there. And that is what is the authentic yoga tradition. Continuing this series on authentic yoga tradition, we will understand the entire philosophy with a combined wisdom of the science and yoga. And then we will see what are the practices that we should incorporate into our lifestyle. But why to incorporate? To help manage our stress, anxiety, problems, suffering in life. And how to discover that peace, that happiness lies within. When I say that authentic yoga tradition is a consciousness-based approach, it simply means that those great masters, I can name them few. It's starting from Vedvyasa, Parashur, Krishna, Shiva, Yajnavalkya, Atreya, Dattatreya, Buddha, Mahavira, all great masters. They discover the self, what we generally term as enlightenment. Or they have the self-realization. The entire human history adores them. They still remember. They follow their practices, their preachings and teachings. The technology that had been applied in reaching to that state of enlightenment comes from the authentic yoga tradition. Whether it's a Jesus, Christ, or any great master, Confucius, Lao Tse. Fortunately, the Indian masters declared that the moment you set your goal to discover your real self beyond mind, you have started doing yoga. But question comes, what is this real self? And what is this consciousness? Yoga says, consciousness in its original form is termed as the real self. This real self deserves clarity, as what yoga explains, the real self has nothing to do with any dogma, belief, cult, or any religion. When I use the word, the real self, it means the purest and the highest state of the consciousness beyond mind. There the mind cannot take any image, any do's and don'ts, any dogma, any belief. Yoga says, can I realize my innermost self? Yes, which people call it God or divinity, maybe the spiritual consciousness. I will also be using many words like belief, faith, mantra, tantra. But be clear, I will use them and clarify them logically to make you understand the significance of yoga as a science of consciousness and as a science of self-discovery. Briefly, starting the understanding of yoga, so this consciousness extends itself, and the very first manifestation is the consciousness force. You might have heard the word the consciousness force as a Shakti, as a feminine power. For the sake of understanding, the consciousness is there and the consciousness force is there. If I am speaking to you, it comes from the consciousness force. It is one of its many manifestations. But if I come and just remain silence, Yoga says it is the silent self. There is a presence, and that presence is the real self, is the innermost core of our existence.
You are listening to Yog Sadhana on Radio Asia, WPRB 103.3 FM HD2, serving New Jersey from New York City to Philadelphia. Also on the web at radioasiafm.com.
Now, this higher consciousness or this real self manifests into 5 major attributes: truth consciousness, pure awareness, pure wisdom, which you can say non-dual consciousness, eternal love, and the spiritual ecstasy. And these 5 attributes further manifest into beauty, into peace, into harmony, into health, into creativity, into intuition, into hunches, maybe into extrasensory perception, everything that is good, that is positive in our life. Now let me know, don't you want to practice yoga? Don't you want a life that is guided by peace, beauty, health, harmony, happiness, creativity? All these are spiritual values. They are the different manifestations of the 5 major attributes of that consciousness. And that is why, if we read the text, in one of the texts, especially the Vedas, it says, what is the nature of that real self? The nature of the real self is Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. The nature of that real self is of the nature of truth consciousness, is of the nature of absolute knowledge, and they both are infinite. Understand this clearly, that here, when yoga talks of the real self, it talks of the nature of the truth consciousness beyond any dogma, belief, cult, releasing. What message it conveys? It conveys the message that we all are potentially the real self. We all are potentially in peace, in harmony, in happiness. And to discover that peace, harmony, happiness within ourselves is the purpose of entire yoga and yoga practices. The moment we move the mind, or we move our entire life into the truth, into the peace, into the harmony and happiness, that is the real masses given to us by these great masters. How to achieve that? Question comes. Many people ask me and tell me that, I'm very busy, and how can I do it? Are you not happy when you are busy? Don't you sleep when you are busy? Don't you work when you are busy? Can't you live into that state of happiness even when you are busy, when you're working day and night, when you communicate and talk to people, when you drive? Think of this. This is just a state of the happiness. That real self within us, it is the state of the truth consciousness. It is the state of spiritual ecstasy. I remember the another Veda speaks of Anandam Vai Brahma. That real self is of the nature of spiritual ecstasy, is of the nature of independent state of happiness. How to move into that authentic yoga tradition? How to touch? How to feel? How to experience? And we can get the answer by understanding the 4 words that moves us day and day out into the authentic yoga tradition. These words are sadhana. The first is sadhana, the second is siddhi, the third is mukti, and the fourth is, we can say, sakshatkar. If I translate these 4 words into an equivalent English, sadhana, we must put ourselves into a regular practices as guided by our teacher. Why I mention that? The teacher must understand your nature, your physical, your mental, your emotional state. The teacher must understand the level of consciousness from where you are functioning. The teacher should also understand your problems and issues so that he can find out from which state of the consciousness you are living your life. Based on that, he customizes, he picks up the select practices for you and he guides you. You have to be under a constant supervision until you discover, you touch. So the first is a practice under the supervision of a teacher until you start experiencing a change in your life. How the change comes? By the change of the consciousness. That is what the first word means. The second means the siddhi. Siddhi means the progress, a perfection. Say, for example, I offer you the relaxation practice based on authentic yoga tradition, and after 5 or 10 minutes of the practice, you come out and you share the experiences. I experience relaxation. I experience peace. And suddenly I say you have to remain in peace all the 24 hours. You say, I will try. No. But how you try? By a regular practice, by persistent, by commitment. You spare the time. You do those practices. So when you are persistently doing those practices, the result appears. Then you see, oh yes, I know I can be into the state of rest and relaxation even when I am busy, even when I am working day and night, even when I have to work 24 hours a day. That is what is exactly the applied understanding of Siddhi. The third word means mukti. Mukti means liberation. Liberation from what? Liberation from what you do not want in your life. And what you do not want in your life? Anxiety, stress, problems, suffering. Can yoga take care of all my problems? I must say, all these masters have declared a big yes. You have physical issues. The consciousness-based approach authentic yoga tradition can help you. You have mental, emotional, relationship, professional, stress issues. The higher practices of yoga, the principles of yoga acts as a strong counseling techniques and tools. Do you see that all these great masters talk at length? They give the discourses. All these discourses and the talks acts as a counseling in the modern language. So when I talk of the third aspect, the liberation, the moment you have practiced something, you have to check consciously that how it helps you to minimize the impact of illness, impact of the anxiety, the stress. When you say, no, I feel now relaxed, my life is changing. What is happening? You are being liberated from the suffering. See the applied understanding of this liberation. Yes, it's a long process. When all the millions and billions of impressions that is stored in the mind are emptied and you are totally liberated. And then the fourth aspect comes, which is known as the realization. These are two little different. Sometimes we consider these two words as the same. Liberation from the suffering brings the self-realization. What is the self-realization? Then you know. What do you know? That you are the self. Then you know you are the peace. Then you know you are the truth consciousness. Then you know and constantly, consciously experience you are the happiness. Then you know you are the love, as the Christ said, love is God. Then you know the way the Vyasa declared, Anandam Vai Brahma. Then what you say, I am of the nature of spiritual ecstasy. You are intoxicated by that state of the happiness all the time, at every moment in your life. That is what I had seen and witnessed in many masters in Himalayas during my journey of yoga for the last 33 years. How to start that journey that will take us beyond stress, that will help us to discover that peace, that harmony and happiness within. I will be talking about the authentic yoga tradition in detail. Not only talking, I'll help you also to practice in my different programs. Always be ready. Who is ready in yoga? Who is fully aware? Who puts 100% not only in understanding the concept and the philosophy of yoga, but also to apply that philosophy through the different practices consciously, and thereafter understanding how this practice helps me to move into the peace, into the harmony, into the health, into the happiness, into managing the relationship issues, in opening the gate of the creativity, intuition, so that the entire spectrum of the spiritual ecstasy manifest in our body, in our life, in our mind.